Hi, friend, and welcome back to Torches Yoga and Mindfulness. I'm Lauren, and I'll be your coach. Before we get started with today's mindfulness practices, I just wanted to take a moment and let you know how absolutely grateful I am to have you here. I've been posting these videos for about a month now, and each day I'm seeing new faces and new numbers join the Torches community, and it just makes my heart so happy. So thank you so much for being here, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Also, this is a safe space for everybody, and if you want to share your experiences with the guided meditations or the mindfulness practices that you bring into your routines, feel free to do so in the comment section. We would love to hear your experiences. All right, enough mushy-gushy. Let's get into today's practices. So this first one I have for you, I'd heard about a few years ago, and I was surprised I'd never heard it before. It was so simple yet so profound. When I started bringing it into practice myself, it really helped elevate my practice and helped me take back control of my own thoughts. Specifically, I'm talking about when we get lost and carried away in those thought spirals. In my teens and 20s, I had been in grief counseling and trauma counseling and in therapy with different kinds of therapists, and never once had anybody told me about this one little trick. They focused on being more reactive. I had been coached on how to move forward positively after the fact, after being carried away by the thought. But I was always left with the question, feeling like this practice of being positive afterwards, being compassionate to myself and refocusing my attention, that was felt just really reactive. And I was left with the question of, couldn't there be a way for us to be more proactive and to have control over these thoughts before they take us to that emotional state? Refocusing our attention when we do catch that moment of awareness in these thought spirals, when we've been carried off, that leaves us just in a reactive state. Just to refocus, we're only reacting. So how can we be proactive? When we give those thoughts labels, we push our brain into a proactive state. Categorizing the thoughts allows our brain to step back and objectively observe it and determine that it's not a threat. And in turn, it will limit how much energy it's going to put into these types of thoughts in the future. So the practice is labeling our thoughts. We're going to catch it, acknowledge it, investigate it, label it, and let it go. When we practice giving our brains this task of categorizing the thought spirals, we're training ourselves to recognize when our minds start to drift off and gently bring ourselves back to the present moment. So to catch it, when you notice that you've been carried away by a thought, first and foremost, please be kind to yourself. There is no need for self-criticism here. We have plenty of haters out there in the world, and they can stay there. Here, not allowed. Only kind, compassion thoughts. Maybe even give yourself a little bit of motivation because, hey, you caught it. You caught that spiral before it worked you up into this extreme emotional state. So be kind to yourself. It is okay and perfectly normal. So when you catch it, notice that your mind has wandered and bring it back to the present moment. Take a deep breath maybe. Take a look at what's going on around you. Take in your environment. Bring your awareness into your body, into the now. And then acknowledge it, but without any judgment. Just acknowledge, I'm thinking this thought. Then we want to do a little investigation. Where did this thought come from? Was there something I was doing or another thought that triggered it? See if we can find its origin. And then we're going to label it. The primary labels I suggest sticking to are reminiscing and planning. If it's something in the past, maybe you're looking back on an experience with regret. Or maybe you're looking back on it with warm feelings, yearning for that positivity to be something you would be experiencing now. If it's in the past, we're going to call it reminiscing. If our thoughts are in the future, maybe we're worrying about what could happen or having a conversation that may come up. Maybe you're planning out your evening, your week, an upcoming event. If we find our thought spiral is in that future tense, we're going to call it planning. Once we've given it a label, then we're going to let it go. Gently return to the present moment. Focus on the task at hand. I find I get lost in thought spirals most when I'm driving. especially when I'm driving on a routine route. It's almost mindless, and that autopilot kicks in. So when we recognize that thought spiral when we're driving, we can bring those mindful driving practices into the moment to refocus our attention. When we are able to see our thoughts as just that, just a thought, it instantly reduces their emotional grip on us. When we practice labeling, we strengthen our mindfulness by making ourselves more conscious of our own thought patterns. And this reduces anxiety by helping us to recognize these worries as mental projections and not reality. And it also improves our focus by training our brains to return to the present moment more quickly. And if we want a little bit of extra credit, we can, of course, take it a step further with gratitude. Asking ourselves, is there something I can take away from this moment? Maybe discovering where it came from, or appreciating that you caught that thought spiral to begin with, because that's a task in itself. The next practice I have for you is called the echo of sound. Practicing the echo of sound taps into our brain's ability to retain and replay auditory impressions, sounds from our environment. It's a phenomenon linked to echoic memory, a component of sensory memory that briefly holds on to the sound even after it's finished. When we hear a sound, our auditory system processes it in real time, but a trace of it lingers with your brain for a few seconds. By actively tuning in to the fading echo, we strengthen our awareness of sound as an impermanent but rich experience. We're going to practice it in 4 steps. Step number 1, choose a sound. Listen to your environment. Any distinct sound works, like a chime, a bird chirp, a dog bark, a door closing. And then, step 2, we're going to pause and notice. As soon as the sound stops, don't immediately shift your focus. Stay with it for a moment. Now bring your listening inward. Can you still hear the sound? What qualities remain? Does it have a tone or rhythm? Is it softening the longer you try to listen? Does it bring any feelings with it? And then we're going to extend the memory. See if you can hold the impression of the sound longer, and then let it fade naturally instead of forcing it away by shifting your focus. So we choose a sound, we pause and notice, then we listen to the sound in our minds, and then we're going to extend the memory. See if we can replay it and how it fades and how it moves through our memory. This practice of echo of sound is so powerful. It deepens our mindfulness by slowing down our perception, allowing us to take notice of the little things in life that can often go ignored. This is also a great exercise for our memory. Musicians and sound engineers use practices like this to train their ability and improve their listening skills. Tuning into the sounds, the small sounds of our environment, helps anchor our awareness to the present moment. Maybe breath work and drawing your awareness to your breath doesn't really work for you when you're trying to maintain your focus, because you're going to breathe whether you're aware of it or not. You're going to breathe, your body's going to breathe whether you're giving it focused intention or not. So for you, that might not be a secure way to keep your focus in the present moment. But if we're anchoring with our auditory senses and the sounds of our environment and stay in the present moment, we are able to fully experience reality. And practicing echo of sound invites impermanence awareness into our lives. The only constant we have in life is change. When we witness the fleeting sounds of our environment, it mirrors the impermanence of all other experiences. This is an exercise you can play around with too. For instance, you can try holding on to one sound while a new sound comes in. Can you play and repeat both? Or maybe instead of looking for a sound in your environment, replay a sound from memory alone and then compare it to how it sounded originally. Did it have different tones and qualities then than it does now being played from memory? And then we can play with a little spatial awareness. After the sound fades, sense where it was in relation to you. And then notice if its presence shows up in a particular spot or maybe a particular area of your mind. Practicing echo of sound strengthens our mindfulness practices all around and to strengthen our focus. And it can also occupy our minds, keeping them out of those icky thought spirals we might get caught up in. So these are the practices I have for you today, friend. Give them a try. Let me know how they go for you. I would love to hear your experiences. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I'll see you soon.